Were it not for this legend, the world would not have been able to take a single photo. Here is the story of Ibn al-Haytham, a story that was not taught in schools. Ibn al-Haytham was born in Basra in the year 965 AD, during a period that was considered the golden age of Islam, and historians differed as to whether he was of Arab or Persian origin, with the preponderance of being of Arab origin. He began to seek knowledge during that period he spent in Basra, where he read many books of Islamic faith and scientific books. It was stated in the book Informing the Scholars about the News of the Wise by al-Kifti, on the authority of Ibn al-Haytham, "If I were in Egypt, I would have done an act that would benefit in each of its cases, whether it is an increase or a decrease." His words reached the Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim Bi'amr Allah, who invited him to Egypt to organize the floods of the Nile, and provided him with what he wanted to carry out this project, a task that required at that time the construction of a dam at the current site of the Aswan Dam. And after he inspected the site, he realized the futility of this project, due to the weakness of the capabilities available at that time, and for fear of the Caliph's wrath, he claimed madness. So he was confined to his house from 401 1011 CE until the death of the ruler in 411 1021 CE. During that period, he wrote his most famous landscape book, although there are tall tales, about Ibn al-Haytham fleeing to the Levant, and then his adventure to move to Baghdad at a later time, and it was said Basra, where he pretended to be mad. But it is certain that he remained in Egypt until the year 1038 AD, during his time in Cairo. Ibn al-Haytham was associated with the Al-Azhar Mosque, which served as the city's university, and, after the end of his house residence period, he wrote dozens of other treatises on physics, astronomy, and mathematics. Then he traveled to Andalusia, where he had ample time for his scientific pursuits, which included optics, mathematics, physics, and medicine, and to do some scientific experiments. He wrote many books on those topics. Ibn al-Haytham was known as al-Basri in relation to his birthplace, in the city of Basra, and they called him Ptolemy, a second-hand the physicist in medieval Europe. Reisner was the first to call him al-Haytham, after he was known as al-Haytham, which is the name closest to the Arabic pronunciation. This work enjoyed a great reputation during the Middle Ages. In 1834, Ibn al-Haytham's works on geometric subjects were discovered in the Bibliothèque Nationale de France in Paris, and some other manuscripts are in the Bodleian Library in Oxford and the Leiden Library. Ibn al-Haytham made great contributions in the field of optics, physics, and scientific experiments. His contributions to physics in general, and optics in particular, were appreciated and the basis for the beginning of a new era. In the field of optical research, theoretically and practically, his research in optics focused on studying optical systems using mirrors, especially on spherical and concave mirrors, and spherical aberration. He also proved that the ratio between the angle of incidence and the angle of refraction is not equal. He also presented a number of researches on the powers of magnifying lenses. In honor of his name, he named one of the volcanic craters on the Moon's surface, and on February 7, 1999, he named one of the newly discovered asteroids, 59,239 al-Haytham, in Pakistan. Ibn al-Haytham was honored by being named to the chair of ophthalmology at the Aga Khan University. In Iraq, his image has been placed on the Iraqi dinar, a denomination of 10 dinars since the 80s of the last century, and then 10,000 dinars issued in 2003, as his name was given to one of the research facilities that were subject to inspection by United Nations inspectors searching for chemical and biological weapons during the era of President Saddam Hussein. Ibn al-Haytham's most famous work is his 7-volume book on the science of corresponding optics, which he wrote between 1011 AD to 1021 AD. The Book of Optics was translated into Latin by an unknown cleric at the end of the 12th century or the beginning of the 13th century AD. This translation had a great impact on Western science, as it was printed by the scientist Friedrich Reisner in 1572. Under the title The Visual Treasure, The Seven Books, al-Haytham al-Arabi, Volume 1, The Rise of Clouds and Twilight. The impact of this book was evident on the work of Roger Bacon, who cited his name, and on the work of Johannes Kepler, and it also contributed to the great development of the experimental method. The NASA Space Agency named a lunar crater after the scientist in memory of his achievements in the field of astronomy. In 2014, the episode Hiding in the Light of the documentary series titled The Universe, An Epic in Space, and Time presented by Neil deGrasse Tyson focused on the achievements of Ibn al-Haytham, and Alfred Molina spoke about him during the episode. Jacob Bronowski presented Ibn al-Haytham's work in a television documentary series called The Human Rise. Bronowski indicated that Ibn al-Haytham was, in his view, the completely original scientific mind produced by Arab culture, whose theories in optics did not develop until the time of Newton. And Leibniz, H.J.J. Winner, a British historian of science, summarizing Ibn al-Haytham's importance in the history of physics, wrote, Ibn al-Haytham corrected some of the prevailing concepts, at that time based on the theories of Aristotle, Ptolemy, and Euclid. Ibn al-Haytham proved the fact that light comes from objects to the eye, and not the other way round as was believed at the time. And to him the principles of the invention of the camera are attributed, and he is the first to fully explain the eye anatomy, and explain its functions, its members, and he is the first to study the effects and psychological factors of vision. His corresponding book also mentioned an equation of the four-degree about the reflection of light on spherical mirrors, which is still known as Ibn al-Haytham's problem. This is the story of Ibn al-Haytham, the story of the owner of the idea of cameras. We meet in a new episode with another legend.